Hello, and thank you for joining us again here at Grace Community Church. As always, I hope this finds you doing well and healthy and enjoying your week. So this week, for our centering prayer, the verse comes out of 1 Corinthians, chapter 3, verse 16. This is another one of the great 3:16s you find in the Bible. It seems like there's a lot of 3:16s that are really important, most notably John 3:16. But this is 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16. The Apostle Paul writes, "Do you not know that you are God's temple, and that God's Spirit dwells in you?" And so, for this verse, when it comes to centering, once again, we want to kind of tweak it a little bit. And as we are taking our deep breaths and we're finding our center, we're coming into stillness, we're coming into quiet, we're clearing our mind, right? We can breathe in, "I am God's temple," and breathe out, "His Spirit dwells in me," right? I am God's temple, His Spirit dwells in me. And so then as we are staying in this moment and as we're going through this centering prayer, this time of stillness, this time of peace and presence, and our minds begin to wander, and as I say every week, it will happen. It's supposed to do that. That's what the brain does. All we have to do is say, "I am God's temple, and His Spirit dwells in me," and come back to center. And one of the things that is really important about this verse is earlier in the Scriptures, in John 4, when Jesus is talking to the woman at the well, and she's asking him about worshiping. And Jesus says, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming, and now is here, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father is seeking such people to worship Him. God is spirit, and those who worship Him must worship in spirit and truth." And so once again, they worshiped God in the wilderness because that's where they thought they were. The Jews worshiped God in the temple because that's where they thought He was. But once again, Jesus is trying to redirect our thoughts and recognizing that God isn't this spirit that is in one place or the other, or God isn't this being that is in one place or the other. God is spirit, and His Spirit is in you. And so when the Apostle Paul writes, "Do you not know that you are God's temple? You are where God dwells. His Spirit dwells in you." And so where do we worship? We worship in the temple. This centering prayer is a time of worship. It's a time for us to just be still and allow the Spirit that dwells in us to just be there. No outside noise, no outside worries, no outside anxieties, no outside thoughts, but just being still in the center of our being where God's Spirit dwells, and just being in worship. Because we don't worship in a physical place, we worship in spirit, and it's a spirit of stillness, it's a spirit of quiet, it's a spirit of celebration and joy and peace and all of those things. And there's many ways in which we worship God. Yes, you can worship Sunday mornings when you come to church. But yes, you can worship God in stillness and in quiet and alone. Because you are His temple, and in you His Spirit dwells. And wherever His Spirit is where worship takes place. Worship takes place in you. Not in a building, not in a parking lot, not in the woods, not on a mountaintop, not by a creek bed or a riverbed. Worship takes place inside. It's something that comes from the innermost part of our being. And we find this, we're able to tap into this when we just sit still clear our thoughts. We focus on the Yah and the way of our breath. And we just be. And for this week, as we're just being, our mind will begin to wander. Or as we inhale, I am your temple. In you, or in me, your spirit dwells. I am your temple. In me, your spirit dwells. The inhale and the exhale. Mind begins to wander. I am your temple. In me, your spirit dwells. And recognize that as worship. Recognize that as God, as you taking time out of your day to be present with the Lord. He is always present in us. He is always present with us because the Spirit dwells in us. But how much time do we take out of our day to be present with His Spirit inside of us? And that's what the centering prayer does. That's what meditation is all about. It's all about being present. And the more we can learn how to be present with the Lord, the more we can learn how to be present with His Spirit which dwells in us, and the more we'll learn how to be present with our families, be present in our jobs, be present in our everyday activities. Because so many times we're just on autopilot. We're getting through this event so we can get to the next thing, and then the next thing after that. And when we're living life like that, we're not being present. We're not enjoying this moment for all that this moment has to offer. So we have to stop focusing on the future, stop thinking about the past, and just be present. And that's what this practice helps us learn how to do. That's why we need to make this practice a major part of our day, a major part of our life. Because the world is trying to distract us from being present. The world is trying to distract us from recognizing that we are God's temple, and it is in us that His Spirit dwells. So let's take some time this week, and let's really focus on the fact that this is true. Well, the fact that this is true, and see, once again, I got myself in my own contradiction. Let's focus on our hope that this is true. The hope that these scriptures have some truth in them. The hope that our hope won't disappoint us. So my hope and my belief is that this is true, that I am God's temple and that in me His Spirit dwells. So if you would have allowed me to have corrected myself there. But this week, let's really put that into our mind. Let's really focus on us being God's temples and us being where His Spirit dwells. Amen.